Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen, and I will be your host today. I really do appreciate you taking some time today to learn more about how to utilize the academic bridge. So all of you here today are current Play Attention clients, and you may be working with your child, you may be working yourself as an adult, or you may be a professional working with your students or clients. So we're going to talk about the academic bridge and how to make certain that you are getting the most out of this feature within Play Attention, because it is a very important feature. And we're going to review more about why it's so important that you do start incorporating it. If you have already incorporated it, hopefully today will give you some tips on how to really enhance your use of Academic Bridge. Now, if at any time you have questions or comments, do feel free to type those in the chat box. And we are recording this event. So at the end of the webinar today, we will get this to you in an email so you can watch the replay link. So let's first talk about how. So when you're doing Academic Bridge, you are still going to be using your body wave armband. So you're still going to have this body wave armband on, just like you're using any of the other exercises within Play Attention. So that is a must. You have to have your body wave armband, and you're going to be doing Academic Bridge while you're doing an actual homework task or work task. So it is very important you keep this in mind. It's a little bit different than actually doing some of the cognitive exercises within Play Attention. Now you're not going to necessarily be looking at the screen. You're going to be looking at your academic work or your office work. So I'm going to share with you a video so that you get an understanding of what this interface looks like. And then we'll get more into how to do this successfully. So right now I'm going to switch my screen here, and you're going to see one of my students doing the academic bridge. Now I have her sound off, so you're not going to be able to hear the sound from the computer, but I'm going to talk you through it. So you notice here, my student, she's in high school, and she is actually doing a reading assignment from one of her textbooks. You'll notice that she does have the body wave armband on her arm. Right here, she's setting up the interface, and she's about to click play. Now, remember, our goal here is to give her immediate feedback regarding her attention while she's doing an academic task. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click play, and you're going to see her do this task. Now you'll notice that once she starts reading, you'll see that that red bar moves up beyond the midline. Now she's not looking at the computer screen, so she can't see it, but what she's hearing right now is good, great. So she's getting verbal reinforcement telling her that she is in her peak attentive state. She's in the state she needs to be in order to process the information and complete this homework assignment. Now you'll notice as she goes through this homework assignment, what happens if she's no longer paying attention. So you see here, she's not engaged, she's no longer paying attention, and that red bar goes down below the midline, and she's going to hear focus. And now she knows she's not in that state she needs to be in order to process and complete this assignment. So this is really important in the learning process. And I'm going to switch my share back here. So you'll see there how important that is, that she's getting that immediate feedback regarding her attentive state while actually doing an academic task. So this brings us to why. Why are we incorporating academic bridge into the play attention process? It's to ensure transfer and generalization of the skills learned. This is where we are asking your child or your student, your client, or you as an adult to take all of the skills you've learned within play attention and apply them to your real work activities. So it's one thing if your child can do a fantastic play attention session, and that's great if they can. But the end goal is to make certain that you are able to apply all of these skills into your life. So that is why we do Academic Bridge in our play attention program. It also gives you an opportunity to develop connections because now you can actually look at data and you can ask your child or yourself, really start reflecting on, well, why is my attention so low when I'm doing a science activity compared to a math activity? What is that difference? How do I approach that differently? How do I feel? How can I improve what I'm doing in this subject compared to this subject area, or this work task compared to another work task? So it really helps you start to make some connections. It can also help you make connections as far as things you think may be helping you. Perhaps you think if you have music playing in the background, that is actually helping you pay attention while you're doing your homework or office work. And you can really actually see data telling you, is that music helping or not helping? Because all of your data is going to be stored within play attention, just like all of the other exercises. We can see this was your science homework while you had music in the background, opposed to your science homework when you didn't have music on in the background. So it starts helping you make connections, not only of things that may be in your environment, but your actual approach to certain tasks at hand. And of course, we want to use Academic Bridge to help develop independence and self regulation. Because you may find right now, even if your child is a teenager, you may find that you are serving as your child's self regulation. So your child sits down to do homework and you're there saying, get back on task, get back on task, get back to your homework. You are redirecting your child. Or perhaps your child has a 504 in place or an IEP at school. And one of the accommodations is to have someone redirecting your child, serving as your child's self regulation. And it is our goal within Play Attention to develop skills and develop that self regulation so that they can redirect themselves. That is critical because as they move into adulthood, there's not going to be someone there redirecting them. We have to use this time to help them develop that self regulation so that while they're doing their homework, or their office work, they're going to be able to recognize when they're paying attention, recognize when they're not paying attention, and more importantly, when they're not paying attention, they're going to know how to regain that attention because they've had the opportunity to actually practice this as a skill within their play attention program. So what types of materials should we be using while doing the academic bridge? It is very important that you select material that is on their independent level. That means you are not using this time to teach them how to read. You're not using this time to teach them how to do math. You're using this time to teach them how to pay attention to the reading, how to pay attention to the math, how to pay attention to the report. So that's what you're utilizing this time for. So when you're deciding on what material you want to bring into the academic bridge, first make certain that it's something on their independent level. Make certain that it's a subject matter that is typically a little bit challenging for them to pay attention to because that's our focus, right? So it's going to probably be a low stimuli activity that they may sometimes have a hard time actually paying attention to that activity and starting and completing independent of you redirecting them. Now, that being said, a lot of times with my students, I may start with an academic task that is easier for them. So For example, I had one student. She was a high school student. She was 15 years old and she loved to read. So reading was not a problem. She could read for hours. That was one of her uh, tasks that she could actually hyper focus on. But when it came to math, she had a math phobia. And I could give her some math activity that was well below her independent level, something she could definitely do. And because she was so anxious about that subject matter, she could not focus because that anxiety would get in the way. She would just be so stressed about her inability to do the math. It was her perception of her inability to do that math assignment that really caused her to lose her attention. So I didn't want to start with math. I wanted to start with something that she would be successful at. So that's why I started with reading. So we would do academic bridge with reading material and she would do very well. And then we had an opportunity to look at her data and say, okay, today you completed this reading assignment for 15 minutes and you were 85% attentive. That's great. How did you feel? What did you learn? I might ask her some reading comprehension questions and we would reflect on her ability to do that and what strategies she used during that process or how she felt when she was reading. And then gradually I would build in academic tasks that were more challenging. And we would start gradually introducing math. And then we could compare how she feels when she's approaching a reading assignment compared to how she's approaching math. So gradually you're going to change. And that's where I talked about earlier, we're going to help you make those connections because when she would finish a math exercise, we could then look at the data and say, when you were doing reading, on average, you were 80 to 90% attentive. But when we get into the math assignment, you're consistently 50% or less attentive. And we would talk about that approach and how her stress and anxiety really negatively affected her ability to pay attention and to process the information and complete the assignment. So once you start making those connections and really helping them develop an awareness, that's the first step to utilizing strategies to help control that anxiety, improve that attention. So it's a really powerful tool to start utilizing. So again, your material should be on their independent level. You may want to start with something that is easier, but you could then eventually tie in tasks that are a little bit more difficult. So Anna says, is there a way to use academic bridge for myself for work? Adult with ADHD. Absolutely, Anna. And I know this focus, we've been talking a lot about students, but you can, as an adult, use your work tasks in the same manner. And I'll give you a few examples of the adults that I work with. Remember, you have your executive function coach, and you can contact that person if you're trying to figure out how to incorporate academic bridge into an adult setting. Then you can talk to your executive function coach and we'll help guide you on deciding what exercises to use. So let me give you one example. I was working with an adult client, and she was a high school English teacher. And one of the most difficult things she had as far as work tasks was grading papers. So she would spend all weekend trying to get through grading papers. Now, of course, she knows how to grade papers. It was just the paperwork, that task, that process that was really difficult for her to start right away, keep her attention on that task until completion, right? So we started incorporating academic bridge while she was grading papers. And during that time, we started to notice and make those connections, things she was doing, things she had in her environment she thought was helping her, they were actually not helping her. She started picking up on when she was losing her attention What was happening? Why could she not regain it? She started developing strategies so that when she started hearing focus, how to regain that attention. So we went through this process several times for a couple of months, and gradually she was transferring and generalizing that without the body wave armband on. And so now she is at spending 2 hours on the weekend doing that task, grading papers. It's only taking her a couple of hours instead of a couple of days. So, Anna, there's lots of ways we can take the tasks, the work tasks that you have, and incorporate them into Academic Bridge. I even have some clients who have it set up on the side while they're in a Zoom meeting, because they find that during a Zoom meeting, they're checking their phone, they're daydreaming. And so Academic Bridge is kind of in their peripheral, keeping them on track. It's that nudge, helping you develop that self-regulation. So again, you're able to better recognize when you're getting off task and learning how to regain that attention at will. So I hope that was helpful, Anna, but let us know if we can help you develop your Academic Bridge. So when should you do this? So in order to incorporate Academic Bridge, we do recommend that you've completed at least 12 sessions of play attention, because we want you to have fundamental mastery of the ability to pay attention. We want you to have that fundamental understanding of what you're doing and what's appearing on screen, that feedback. So we do recommend you don't start Play Attention's Academic Bridge until you've completed at least 12 regular sessions. And then once you've done at least 12 sessions, you're going to actually see Academic Bridge highlight in your game menu. And I'm going to show you the Play Attention interface in just a little bit. So we'll walk through where that Academic Bridge is located and how to start incorporating it. So you could use Academic Bridge during a session. You could utilize Academic Bridge after a session, or you could log into your Play Attention and just do Academic Bridge as a session. So I have some clients who will work with their child early in the day, doing all of the cognitive exercises. And then at after school time, when they're doing their homework, they'll just log in and do Academic Bridge while it's homework time. So they incorporate Academic Bridge into the homework time. You might not do all of the homework exercises using Academic Bridge, but you can incorporate it during that time. So you can do it during a session, after a session, or as its own standalone session. I really encourage you to incorporate Play Attention's Academic Bridge, because remember, it's great if you can do a Play Attention session and do really well at all of the different cognitive skills, but now it's time to make certain that you're able to transfer and generalize those skills. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to change my screen so that you can see the different interfaces within Play Attention, so that you are absolutely comfortable with setting up Academic Bridge as part of your Play Attention program. Now, again, as I was saying earlier, if you need assistance, you can always reach out to your executive function coach and ask that person to help you with the process as well. So first, I'm going to share with you what your screen looks like when you are actually logged in as a student. So right now you should see the Play Attention program on my screen. And if you could just type in a Y for yes, if you can see the Play Attention interface right now. Excellent. Thank you, Brian. All right, great. So now you see I have my interface. I've logged in as a student, and I can actually see Academic Bridge highlighted at the very top of my screen, and it's highlighted in yellow. Okay, so that means once it's highlighted in yellow, I can go ahead and start Academic Bridge. So I'm going to log in as student, and I'm going to click Academic Bridge. And this brings me to the Academic Bridge interface. So you'll see that there are a few things I need to set up first. I can click this down arrow and you'll notice that there are already some activities auto-populated for me. And that's because my coach has already gone into my student file and set up these assignments for me. So I can click on reading homework or math, whatever I may be working on at that time. Or let's say that Anna's logging in and she needs to write a report for her job. So she's going to type in report, and she could even type in a little bit more. So it's about statistics, about a particular task she has at work. So she can type in that specific exercise, even if it's not already generated in her student screen. And then she can select what her interface is going to look like. Is her background going to be blue or metal? What's the foreground going to look like? And here she can select how long is this task going to be. And you'll notice that I can select it's a 5-minute task, it's a 9-minute task, all the way up to a 30-minute task. So let's say that you're starting a homework assignment with your child, and you can also use this with kind of a time management type of exercise where you ask your child to predict how long it's going to take them to complete a particular homework assignment. This is not only important for your child, but if you as an adult have that time blindness where you're not really aware of how long things take you, this is a good exercise to do. So let's say that your child has to read 5 pages in his textbook. Ask him before he starts, how long do you think it's going to take you to complete this assignment? Or 10 math problems. How long do you think it's going to take you? You think it's going to take you 15 minutes? So we'll set it to 15 minutes and see how close we come to that. And then the reinforcement here, this means how often are you going to get that auditory feedback? So right now it defaults to 5 seconds. That means every 5 seconds, I'm going to either hear good, great, or I'll hear focus. So that might be a little too much for me. So I might change it to every 15 seconds, every 30 seconds, or every minute. And then down here, you can select, do you want to hear a tone, or would you like a female voice or a male voice? So if you haven't used Play Attention's Academic Bridge yet, you might want to just log in as coach or as system administrator and just play around with this. Have your child or your student play around with it and decide what type of background you like, how many minutes you like to set it for, and the different sounds you can select. So that way, when you actually go into a session, you'll already have a good understanding of how this all works. So again, this is if you want to go ahead and set this up right in the middle of a session, or you just want to log in as a new session and just do Academic Bridge. Remember, you don't have to do the exercises that pop up on your screen. You could just log in and only do Academic Bridge. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And then, of course, you're going to go ahead and hit play. And remember, you're not going to be looking at the screen specifically. You're going to be looking at your task at hand, and you're going to be engaged in that specific task. Now, if your child has selected reading, you may want your child to actually read aloud or read silently and follow up with comprehension questions. I think you will be amazed at how comprehension improves over time when you utilize Academic Bridge with the reading process. If your child has a hard time listening and auditory instructions or auditory information, you may want to read to your child and have your child look at you while you're reading. And again, follow up with those comprehension questions. All right, so now I want to show you, so that's if you're logged in as a student. Now I'm going to go ahead and log out, and I'm going to show you how to set it up as coach or system administrator. So right now I'm just going to log in as system administrator. And you'll notice that I have my interface here, and I'm going to click on my users, and I see all of my students, and I'm going to select this student here. Okay, I'm going to edit my student because I want to go ahead and I want to make certain I set up some new tasks for that individual. So down at the bottom, you'll see Academic Bridge, and it is enabled. Okay, remember it's going to automatically enable after 12 sessions, but you can go in here and enable it or disable it at any time. So there are already some assignments that have been selected or input for this student. I'm going to add another activity that I want this student to work on. And I'm going to say that this activity is a project planning for English. Okay. So we have a big project coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and select project planning for English. And notice too, you can delete these at any time. So once this project is over, I can go ahead and come in here and delete it. So now I'm going to save that. And I want to go into my students' data and look at some reports, okay? So I'm going to select that student. I'm going to go to reports and select the student from the drop-down and show the report. Okay, now when I scroll down here, you'll notice that I can, of course, change what I want to look at. So let's say I want to look at just science homework. And I can see the graph down here. Now, this is a demonstration of my students, so there's not a lot of data, but you'll see that when I do my my science homework that day on January 11th, I was 73% attentive. I was 58% attentive. So it'll show me my attention every time I did that science homework. I can also look at the duration, how long I was working. I can look at my recovery time. That's from the time I lost my attention to the time I regained it. What did that look like? Now, what if I want to compare my science homework to my math homework? I can just click math homework, and now I get a comparison. My science is in blue, my math is in orange, and now I can look at a comparison, and I can easily see that my attention percentage between science and math, my attention is much better when I do a science assignment compared to when I do a math assignment. And that's where I was talking about earlier, how you can then use this data to say, what do you think that is? Why was your attention so much better when you were doing science compared to when you were doing math? How do you approach your science? How do you feel? What strategies are you using? Can we utilize some of those strategies when you're doing math? So remember, you're developing those connections and helping your child or yourself start developing strategies you can use. You can also look at, of course, duration and recovery time. When you come down to your data comparisons, if I look at my science homework compared to my math homework, I can also look at my data here and select attention. So there are lots of different ways you can utilize the data, and you can also just look down here at the raw data to just get individual data points, how long you worked and what was your percentage. A lot you can glean from this data, and it really is a great starting point because you may not know how to start that conversation. But now you have data to really share with your child or yourself to start reflecting on how your attention is negatively affecting your ability to complete this assignment. Like if you are very anxious and you can't pay attention, how is that reflected in your ability to do that task at hand? And what can we do to improve your attention during that task? So I hope this is very helpful for you. And so remember a few key points you want to keep in mind. And I'm just going to go back here so we can talk about those key points, and you can ask any questions if you have additional questions. So remember, you can use Play Attention's Academic Bridge after you complete 12 sessions. You can utilize it before a session, after a session, during a session. You can just log in and do Academic Bridge as its standalone session. You want to select material that is on your independent level or your child's independent level, because remember, this is not a time where you're going to teach science, you're not going to teach math, you're going to teach how to pay attention to the task at hand. And your end goal is to use all of this information to help develop self-regulation and self-monitoring, so that when you are in the classroom, or if you are in the workplace and you are on a specific task, you're going to be able to pay attention to the task. You're going to be able to take all of the skills that you've learned within Play Attention and apply them to that task. You're going to recognize when you're paying attention, recognize when you're not paying attention. And when you start to drift, you're going to catch yourself and be able to regain that attentive state. So I hope that is very helpful for you. If you have not yet incorporated Academic Bridge into your Play Attention session, I feel like now you should have the tools to go into your Play Attention portal and start playing with Academic Bridge and setting it up as part of your program. If you need help with that process, remember to reach out to us. Your support is always here. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending today, and hopefully we'll see you at a new webinar next time.